Once upon a time, in the vast kingdom of Persia, there ruled a mighty king named Ahasuerus. His empire was grand and stretched from India to Ethiopia. In his royal palace, he hosted a feast for the nobles, displaying his immense wealth and power. However, a twist of fate led to the queen, Vashti, being banished when she refused to obey the king's command to find a new queen. The king ordered a search for the most beautiful young women in the land. From among these women, a humble Jewish girl named Esther, raised by her cousin Mordecai, was brought to the palace. Esther was kind, wise, and incredibly beautiful, and when she appeared before King Ahasuerus, he was captivated. He placed the royal crown upon her head, making her the new queen of Persia. Mordecai overheard a plot by two of the king's guards to assassinate King Ahasuerus. He informed Esther, who passed the news to the king, crediting Mordecai for the warning. The guards were captured, and the incident was recorded in the royal chronicles, though Mordecai was not immediately rewarded. Meanwhile, a man named Haman rose to power as the king's most trusted advisor. Haman was arrogant and cruel, and he demanded that everyone bow before him. But Mordecai, a faithful Jew, refused to bow, as he would only bow to God. He convinced King Ahasuerus to issue a decree, sealing the fate of the Jews on a date chosen. When Mordecai learned of this wicked decree, he tore his clothes in grief and put on sackcloth and ashes. He urged Esther to speak to the king on behalf of her people. Esther, though afraid, for approaching the king without being summoned could mean death, found the courage to act. She declared a fast for 3 days. On the third day, Esther dressed in her royal robes and approached the king. To her relief, he extended his golden scepter, sparing her life. With wisdom and grace, Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. That night, the king could not sleep. He ordered the royal records to be read to him, and was reminded of how Mordecai had saved his life. Realizing Mordecai had never been rewarded, the king asked Haman how a man whom the king wishes to honor should be treated. Thinking the king was speaking of him, Haman suggested a grand display. The man should be dressed in royal robes, paraded on the king's horse, and honored throughout the city. To Haman's horror, the king commanded him to honor Mordecai in this way. Filled with humiliation and dread, Haman returned to his home, but he had little time to grieve. He was summoned to Esther's banquet. Esther bravely exposed Haman's wicked plot, declaring herself a Jew and pleading for her people's lives. The king, enraged, ordered Haman to be hung on the very gallows Haman had prepared for Mordecai. With Haman gone, the king issued a new decree, allowing the Jews to defend themselves. Thus, through courage, faith, and divine providence, Esther and Mordecai saved their people.